Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Happy Friday to you and your family. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take another look here at Bitcoin, see what's going on. We have a tremendous amount of volume here today, a nice little spike. Obviously to the downside, we're going to see if key level supports will be holding. We'll take a look at that and much more. If you're new to the channel, not a financial advisor, I love teaching people to trade. I hope you can learn something today. If you do learn something, obviously, feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you want to become a better trader, of course, I have a trading academy, community, and signal group. All link in the description below. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Other than that, I do offer military and third world country discounts as well. Take a look here at Bitcoin. Here's kind of what's going on. So let's go ahead and talk about the obvious. About a 5-day rejection right at 21,600. So that's kind of a point of contention. Of course, price action couldn't increase through that, and even though there was an ascending type of pattern, it inevitably broke to the downside. Makes sense because the overall sentiment is bearish, right? So again, a long position recently would have been, disadvantageous. That's why we held off as a community for trading for a couple of days to make sure that we kind of waited for this to happen, and I'm glad that we did. But now that we're here at 20,800, it makes me curious, how much lower will it go? All right, and in that sense, we can go ahead and take a look at a handful of factors to kind of understand that. But first and foremost, if we kind of look at 20,800, you can see that that has been a level that's been retested a couple of times. This is essentially the third retest of 20,800. Okay, so we had once back in July on the 26th, obviously last Friday and Saturday, and again here today on Friday. So we're seeing kind of a common theme here on Fridays. Fridays are dump days. kind of a bummer, but that's just kind of how it's going. Let's take a look at the regular markets before we go any further here. We can see NASDAQ took a tumble, as well as S&P. So big surprise, bearish engulfing candles there. It does imply we have potential for further downside. Dollar index kind of drawing dead as well. So this one is kind of just showing us that it's still getting rejected at that key level resistance, but that is not super important right now. What's important is the traditional markets are taking a hit. So there's obviously something going on with the the meeting that's going on, of course, today, yesterday, and tomorrow. And that Jackson Hole is essentially providing us with some interesting volatility, specifically in the traditional markets. And that, of course, translates over to Bitcoin here as well. So again, something kind of to recognize and to understand. Those things do factor in. While they're not 100% telling, it does kind of give us an indication that we're potentially on our way down. In other words, if we kind of take a look here, we can kind of see this little bit of a trend here where the price action is continuing lower, and it's just one of those things that's going to continue until it doesn't, right? But good news is 20,800 is a key level support, and it's a nice area there that should essentially hold. And if it doesn't, we've got another area of support at 19,800 as well. So I do feel as if the price is generally moving down, but I don't know if we're going to see it come down tremendously further. Again, I know there's a lot of folks out there that want to say 14,000. I know that's a possibility, but until we retest 17.6, it's not, okay? We need to rely on our previous key level supports, which is 19,800, as well as the most recent 20,800. So those are two key levels, in my opinion, that we want to pay attention to. But if we do take a look at some of the moving averages, you can see we're also below all three of those. And if we take a look on the 4-hour as well, we're, of course, same scenario, same narrative here. We are well below all those moving averages. So again, just something to kind of think about here in that sense, because right now, Bitcoin, while it's on the struggle bus and we have a tremendous amount of volume right now with the traditional markets opening poorly, there is a decent amount of support that we have. Okay. Furthermore, too, as well, let's take a look at the RSI. We are becoming overextended to the downside. Doesn't imply that we can't see more downside, of course, because that is absolutely a thing. But I think the likelihood of the price pushing down tremendously further right now is lower, just based on how much support we're having right here at this level. And what I mean by support is, if you look at smaller time frames, which we will, you can identify that 20,800 is an area that there's a lot of volume support, as well as, of course, it being a previous support level. Okay, so it hasn't officially been broken yet until the 1-day candlestick closes below, right? So again, at that sense, we still have not broken that level. We do have an obvious MACD divergence here, of course, and this is just the beginning, so it very, very well could continue lower. Okay, so it's best to kind of expect the price to come lower, but also to understand that we have some decent supports here that should essentially hold, because we've been range bound this entire week between 20,700 and 21,700. So that range essentially is holding true so far. So why would it not potentially want to come back up again? Obviously different stories. There's a lot of different potentials, but it is something to kind of think about in the general sense of things. All right. So that's kind of where we're at there in that regard. On the hourly, what we want to take a look at is, of course, the cloud and kind of identify that this is extremely bearish. Not necessarily saying that you should open a position to the downside, but if you have one open, you may want to leave it open just because there's so much more room for continuation, right? Now, again, me personally, when situations like this, when Bitcoin comes down to test these levels, I like to add to my position and or potentially take a long from 20,800 back up because we are still range bound, all right? So if this range continues to hold, then we should expect the price action to come back up again eventually. All right. So again, it depends on the kind of your general sense of what side of what side you want to stand on, right? Because when you're in a range bound situation, the likelihood of it continuing to maintain that is quite high, even though we do still have this overall bearish sentiment. So again, I know it seems kind of conflicting with the overall sense, but it wouldn't be the worst thing ever to take a long position at 19,800 or 20,800, right? Perhaps even average them both out. That might be a consideration for later, but at this point, we can see most signs point down. And then when it comes to the hourly as well, I mean, actually, why don't we look at the smaller time frames too? Because I want to show you this here. So on the 15, if we take a look at the volume here, volume is absolutely increased, right? And it increased to the upside too, but as you can see, there wasn't a tremendous amount of volume there going up. So in that sense, even though there were some volume spikes and we got hit by that resistance, then the price action came down, there's a lot more volume adding. But once again, this amount of volume that we're seeing here recently is still staying high and the price is staying the same. That tells us that we should expect the price to come not much lower from here. In other words, it should essentially reverse itself because there's a lot of buying pressure at this level. Okay. So again, just little tiny things you can kind of see. We can also identify that we're well outside of the standard deviation for the Bollinger Band, so I would say bounce right here would be appropriate, would make sense. And even if we go a little further, we can see we're well outside of the standard deviation for the volume weighted average price as well. Now, I prefer to look at that on the hourly, but no matter how you look at it, we are still tremendously outside of that comfort zone, right? So why would the price action continue tremendously lower from here? Even though it is possible, I think we still need to consolidate at this support first before it comes any lower, right? Again, a handful of little things that kind of just stack up. So to me, of course, obviously the overall sentiment is bearish. I'm not screaming bullish tendencies here or thinking that the price is just going to shoot back up again. But it does feel like we're going to probably be still range bound here in this area if we can close above 20,700 today, and that the likelihood of the price action increasing from here, at least within the range of 20,800 to 21,700, is higher, right? Not to say we couldn't see 19,800 retested. It's just the overall sense here is that I wouldn't say the bottom is in, but the tentative bottom perhaps for today should be in. That's what it feels like. Again, way too early to anticipate. If you do take a trade, make sure it's very small amounts. I might consider taking a trade, and if I do, it's going to be a very low position size. So please ensure that you are following that and ensuring that you're, just being careful and cautious with your investments. Careful with super tight stop losses right now, depending on the type of trade that you're taking, because obviously these movements are pretty severe and there's a lot of candle wicks up and down. All right, so again, just something to be careful of, but today makes perfect sense as to why the price action inevitably came down. Profit taking Friday, big surprise, but there's a decent chance we might see a green weekend just as a result of that. That's a very common characteristic. So we shall see here soon enough, but hopefully this provides some clarity on just how I kind of interpret things. I recognize there's no definitive direction. The overall sentiment is down, right? But I do feel like short term, we could very well see a slight recovery this weekend. It really just depends on a lot of different factors. And right now, honestly, there's so much fundamentals that sometimes this technical analysis doesn't matter as much as I would like it to be. As much as I would like it to actually be relevant. Even though this is relevant, obviously these are key level supports and things that are based on this, there's still a tremendous amount of other things that are out of this control that you got to kind of roll with. So when there's crazy news like this, a lot of times it's best to sit on the sidelines and just kind of let things happen when Jerome Powell has presentation or you know, anything along those lines, we need to make sure to recognize that that is going to absolutely shift the market. Okay, so again, just a handful of things to think about. I appreciate you joining me here. If you want to become, again, a better trader, CryptoCache.tech is a site. Link in the description below. Look forward to working with you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your time.